are here to hear the case of appeal number 1873, which pertains to the request for a variance at 717 Valla Vista Avenue. In the hearing packet, we have the hearing agenda, content cover sheet. We have the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette official notice of the appeal and the hearing. We have the zoning hearing notice to property owners. We have the application itself, which includes the application letter from the applicant, signed letters from neighbors at 715. Is it Valla Vista Avenue and 719 Valla Vista Avenue. We have a survey of the property, and then we have architectural renderings of the property and the planned addition. And the packet also includes 4 photographs taken by the municipality. So I think we can swear him in and get started, and here we have you tell us about your application.
Just swear to testify your mouth will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
I do. All right, well, thank you for taking time out of your evening to hear my case. I am Tim Reedy. I am a resident since 2012 in Mount Lebanon. I've lived in the same house since 2012. I very much love Mount Lebanon. I love my street. I love the neighborhood that street and the surrounding streets creates. My wife and I have worked to try to build community on that street. Starting, I believe, this Friday, we have food trucks that come down to the park that are on our street. We really don't want to move from that street, but we have a lot more kids than we had when we moved into the house initially. We have more kids, even double the kids even since the addition that we built on in 2017, and we need more space. And so in this particular case, our house that was built in 1941 was already non-conforming with the zoning ordinance. Our total lot is only 40 feet. Our house is about 28 feet wide, which means that our side yards don't meet the minimum of 15 feet. And one of those 2 side yards is less than the minimum of 5. That is not something that we built. We had no reason to fight that in the 40s, but that is the nature of our house. It is a pretty small house, so any addition that's going off of it really needs to be the same width as the house for functional reasons and as well as for structural reasons. In this particular case, the bigger of the 2 additions that we're hoping for is a second floor on top of an existing first floor. To make that second floor any less wide than the original or the existing first floor addition would be incredibly difficult from a structural standpoint to do. It just makes sense for load-bearing walls to continue up. In the case of our front porch, that is something that we are hoping to do just as part of renovating the front of our house, which desperately needs a facelift. Our front door is not in the very convenient place. It's basically at the bottom of a 3-foot by 3-foot stair landing. So it is chaos getting in and out of our house every single day, especially with wet shoes or snowy shoes or coats and snow pants and things like that. So we are hoping to create more of an actual entrance vestibule that will just help our family come in and out every single day. In order to do that, though, we need a porch that can span at least all the way to the left side of our house. But in our case, in order to support it structurally, it makes sense to actually continue it all the way over to the other side of our driveway, just because of how our retaining wall is that engages our driveway. There's really not a good way to support it structurally. And from an aesthetic standpoint, I've explored this as I am also the architect of this project. it does not look good to do a porch that's only half or 2/3 of the width of the front of the house. We also would like to have a front porch that is that wide because we are very much part of our community. We like to engage our street. Our current porch is just a little 6-foot by 8-foot concrete thing that can barely hold 2 chairs. And so we want to engage our community more than we do already. We want to be able to sit there, see neighbors coming up and down the street. There's Rockwood Park is right at the end, at kind of the bottom of our street. And we love the traffic that brings, the people that come up and down, the people that are walking to the tee. We want to be able to engage them more than we do now by having a porch that allows us to spend time out there rather than kind of secluded and tucked back in our backyard, which is not the type of people that we are. And so for those reasons, we are asking for, forgiveness of this variance violation that we are doing, allow us to build our porch to be the same width as our existing house and therefore non-conforming with the side yard setback requirements, as well as the second floor addition to be the same width as our house. For that, both of those end up being non-conforming. However, they will be the same width as our house is now. And so for that, we've asked our neighbors if they were comfortable with this. Both neighbors on either side have said yes. We have great relationships with them, so they had no problem with it. And so those are the only two people really that are affected by this from a zoning variance standpoint, and they both agree that they're not concerned with it. So, any questions?
I just have a question because I was clarifying this with Mr. Sarver before, but if the second floor addition just went straight up from the your existing first floor, which was already approved with the variance, that does not need the variance. That the variance is for the 2-foot bump back and for the porch.
Oh, I was under the impression that the addition of any kind, because of that being going up a floor. I mean, either way, I'm applying for the variance regardless.
Right, yeah.
The 2 feet is something that we are just hoping because our bedroom now, which is on the first floor, which is the same footprint as basically what's going up on the second floor, it's tight. That was all we could really manage back then from a financial standpoint, and we tried not to push too far back into our backyard, which slopes up. However, now that we're going up, being able to cantilever over, we're not really encroaching anymore on our backyard. So we are hoping to have a little bit more space in our bedroom so that we can fit a little bit more furniture. Currently, we have a queen bed, and it's basically just 3 feet of clear space around either side of it. There's not really room for dressers or anything like that, so it's pretty tight. So having that additional 2 feet, really, that's as far as I feel comfortable structurally cantilevering, because you have to tie all the floor framing back. If you go any farther than that, then it gets a little bit more difficult structurally, but this at least gives us the flexibility to either put more furniture into that bedroom or increase the bed size to a king bed if we ever choose to do that in the future.
So I think maybe we'll walk through the 5 criteria for a variance, and then we'll see if there are questions from the board members. All right, so I'm just going to read each criteria out and ask you to respond about how this, whether or not you meet that criteria. Okay, so the first criteria is that there are unique physical circumstances or conditions, including irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot size or shape, or exceptional topographical or other physical conditions peculiar to the particular property, and that the unnecessary hardship is due to such conditions and not the circumstances or conditions generally created by the provisions of the zoning ordinance in the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. So this first criteria is about the unique physical circumstances of the lot.
And that, I will make the same argument that I made back in 2017, which is just that our house was built already non-conforming, and so any addition that wants to tap off the back of it or the front of it either has to be a different width, which creates a number of unique structural issues, or creates a difficulty in terms of how it's connected. Our house is a Cape Cod. It has a stair right down the middle, hallway right down the middle, two fairly narrow rooms on either side. To do something that's just kind of offset really only allows you to build one room. So to build two rooms, you really need it to be the full width. Otherwise, you're going much further back. And so it's the same argument. Back in 2017, we built a new kitchen and a new first floor bedroom. In order to do two rooms, we had to have it be the full width of the house. And the same goes for this. In order to do two functional bedrooms upstairs, we needed to go the full width of the house. And then as far as the porch goes, it's just from a functional standpoint, being able to have the walkway and to have furniture that we can sit in and enjoy without being in the way of the door. It makes sense to have it be the full width, as well as structurally, it's really difficult for us to get a smaller porch without it being either too small to have furniture or having to have structural supports coming down right in the middle of our driveway, which can't happen. By being able to push the structural support kind of across the driveway, it allows us to still park our cars on the driveway. And it gives us that ability to relocate the entrance and still have space for furniture on that. It also just, from an aesthetic standpoint, there's really no other way to do that. If that makes sense. Our Cape Cod house is very symmetrical. Yeah. So having something that's not symmetrical plopped onto something that's symmetrical doesn't really work.
All right, the second criteria is that because of such physical circumstances or conditions, there is no possibility that the property can be developed in strict conformity with the provisions of the zoning ordinance, and that the authorization of a variance is therefore necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property. I feel like you
Yeah,
just
and
described
I mean,
that, yeah.
there is a way to do it, but I would be sacrificing program that the program of what we're trying to do to help our family stay in this house definitely necessitates that size of addition. If you say we have to make the porch smaller, we're probably not going to do the porch at all. If you say we have to do the second floor addition smaller, we're probably just going to move. And unfortunately, that's just how it is. It's already, even the addition we're putting on is already kind of the bare minimum that we need to function as a household. The porch is an extravagance, I would say, for us. We can get away with our kind of old crumbling concrete porch, but that is something that we would like to do to engage the community, and it really can't be smaller than that from a functional, structural, or aesthetic standpoint.
The third criteria is that such unnecessary hardship has not been created by the appellant.
I did not build the 1941 house or create the zoning ordinance that made the original house already non-conforming.
Okay, the fourth is that the variance, if authorized, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property, nor be detrimental to the public welfare.
So the porch is really the only part of it that would really affect the community, I would say. The second floor addition on the back, it's only really going to affect our experience of our backyard. But the porch on the front is what engages the community, and I actually think it's going to enhance our house's ability to engage the community, to be better neighbors, to be more communicable, to be able to talk to our neighbors when they're coming up and down the street, when they're walking their dogs. I know that it doesn't create any extra hardship on our neighbors because they both have porches that stick out just as far. Their porches don't go the full width of their house, but that's just because our neighbor to the right, Mindy, who signed one of the letters, she just basically built a cover over her porch that's also original to 1941. Our neighbors on the left, they built an addition 20 years ago that has a porch that comes across 2/3, but they also bumped out their whole garage by about 4 feet, so they have like a separate gable. So in their case, they built a smaller porch, or it's deeper, but narrower, but it's because they created an imbalance in the elevation of their house, and so it made sense. But our porch would be coming out, I believe, to the same front line as theirs would. And as they said in their letters that they signed, it doesn't create hardship for them, and really they would be the only ones that would be affected by this.
And then the fifth criteria is that the variance if authorized will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and will represent the least modification possible of the regulation and issue.
So the only issue with this design as it relates to the zoning ordinance is just the width of the house. And so I am not asking to extend it beyond the width of my existing house. So the minimum that I'm asking is to be able to maintain the width of the house that's existing. So I would say that it is the minimum. And as I've said before, making it any smaller would kind of negate the question in the first place.
Do we have questions?
Go.
Okay.
So I really only have one. I think you've laid out a pretty good argument for the addition, but I don't want to say I'm stuck on the porch, but just trying to get, I think if you could elaborate a little bit more on the structural and kind of why it makes sense to go all the way across, understanding that it aligns with the existing footprint of your house.
Yeah, so I think part of it is just being able to, like, if we only built it to where, like, I guess from the left side of our house to where our existing retaining wall ends, the structure of that is going to have to end up being on top of our existing canopy, or our existing porch, which is kind of crumbling. We are planning to take it down, or at least tear the cap off of it and fill it up. It's not really load bearing, but we're also trying not to just completely excavate it, because our retaining wall that supports our driveway, or the side of our driveway, is kind of resting on it. And so what we're hoping to do is to just kind of take the top off, fill it, and then be able to just kind of almost just build over the top of it, just almost kind of like bury it in place and build the porch over top of it. So it makes it difficult to have supports that are kind of, I guess, at the end when the porch is kind of in the way. So by being able to pull that support across the driveway, it allows us to kind of put less pressure on that center. But then I think more importantly is just in studying the elevation of it, I did look at a number of elevations where the porch was just on the side. And as I mentioned before, we're trying not to change the character of our house too much. We are not building like a big gable that pops out one side so that there is kind of an imbalance that makes sense. It is symmetrical, and we're trying to keep it symmetrical. And so by having the porch come all the way across, that helps kind of keep it balanced the way it is. The way that I have the posts laid out, they kind of frame where the windows and the doors go. And so that just kind of, I think, makes sense with keeping as much of the character of the existing house as possible without, just kind of tearing everything off and building it.
And to follow up on that, I can see the reference to your neighbor's house to the left,
Yeah.
on the top left photo.
Yep.
Do you know, when you were laying this out, is the face of your house basically at the setback line? So like, could you even do what they've done on this side? Because it does look like their other elevation is kind of recessed. So just
Yeah,
trying
so
to understand.
so our house, the front of our, like the actual house structure matches where their house is recessed.
Okay.
And so they built a porch that I believe is 10 feet, which I think is the allowable amount for a porch from the face of the primary structure. I'm asking for an 8-foot porch. So my porch will actually be shallower than theirs is.
With the porch, I know you said from a visual appearance, it looks best if it goes all the way across, but you also talked about the structural. Is it just, I don't know how much you looked into it. Is it just not even possible structurally to go down next to the retaining wall, or?
I just don't, I have no idea from a structural standpoint if the retaining wall, well, I am planning to put posts down, but the posts are
Yeah, I
gonna
saw
go
that.
all the way down to probably to the level of the driveway, just for frost.
Yeah.
But I think the hope is that I'm just gonna completely avoid putting any weight on the existing porch or the retaining wall.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Starter, if I can get a clarification on so what's in the packet is regarding the side yard, but there was a comment made about the 2-foot cantilever. Is that in question here? Because that wasn't explicitly laid out in any of the.
What he explained to me was that it's where's the survey?
Yeah, I can explain if you want.
Yeah.
So if you look at if you look at your information, there's two parts here. It's the side yard, and if you go to the non-conforming building and structures section of the zoning ordinance, which is 903. So if you go to 903.4, it basically is entitled expansion or extension of a non-conforming building or structure. And then if you go to 903.4.2, it says for dwellings, if the reason of the existing nonconformity consists only of non-dimensional nonconformity of the required yards, in this case it does, then the expansion may occur without a variance if such expansion or extension or other increase in size in itself does not, one, increase the dimensional nonconformity, which he's technically not because he's staying within the side profiles of the nonconformity. And number two, extend into a new area. So because the rear addition has the cantilever over top of the first floor, you're extending into a new area into the rear yard. Therefore, that's why the variance is required. So it's for the combined side yard of that second-story bump out. If he wanted to go straight up from the existing first floor walls, you're not expanding into a new area. You're not extending the
So
nonconformity.
we wouldn't be here if that were the case.
Well, we'd still be here for the front.
Yeah, which, correct. And then if you look at the section 1305, which is unenclosed porch exceptions, it says an unenclosed porch not more than 1 story or 14 feet in height may be erected in the required front yard, front or rear yard, of property situated in R1, R2, and R3 district, provided that it shall not extend more than 10 feet into the required front or rear yard or into the required side yard. So hence, he's allowed to go 10 feet out
And he's only
in
going-
front of the building line. And forgive me, but I'd have to see the survey in the package. And currently,
So it's just this.
it
area
doesn't
right
show the
here.
building line, so,
I think the green is the new building line, isn't it?
nah, the green is just a porch, and that's only 8 foot deep. I don't have a scale. You don't have a scale on you, do you? No.
My car.
Because you might be in a plan that doesn't even have a building line, so that,
I don't believe it does. And I
Okay.
believe that therefore it's based on
The average of
of the houses next door. And
correct.
basically all the houses, at least the two on either side of me, our front of our houses is all aligned.
Correct.
So whatever porches or additions come off of any one of our 3 houses, and even the ones probably to the left and right of them, would all fall under that same building line.
So essentially, it's just the combined side yard and the minimum side yard. Because on the right side, he is at 4.4 feet. So the minimum is 5 foot for a side yard.
And that's the case of the original house was already non-conforming with that side yard.
Yeah.
With the first variance, the original house was non-conforming. He went for the variance for the first floor in the rear, and again, that was for the same thing essentially.
Yeah.
That you were less than the minimum 5 foot, as well as the total combined side yard of 15 foot. So he doesn't meet the exception for the front porch because he's extending into the required side yards. And because he's extending a little bit further to the rear, which he's still not into the required rear yard.
And that's the case even though it's just the second floor that's extending?
Correct. Because again, it's into a new area. So if you wanted to bump out the back,
Yeah.
you could still maintain the 15 feet into a new area and not need a variance. But because he wants to extend it over the top of the existing, that's where he needs the variance for the minimum as well as the
That would be
combined.
like some small little bump out just for, that would keep the, right?
Right.
Any other questions?
Don't think so, no.
Does the municipality have
No, other than the fact that we've discussed this in the past, and whenever he made applications, you know, he called in first, and basically we discussed what was needed, you know, as far as a variance wise, and that's what led him to apply for the variance tonight, so. Okay,
I think we'll go and discuss and then.
let me see if there's anybody on.
Oh, yeah, are there any questions on that?
There's nobody in attendance.
Right, and we want to see if we can vote separately on the rear and the porch. Is that, because those are two different pieces, is that,
Yeah, that's your preview.
okay, I didn't know what our rules are. Okay, great, so why don't we start with the rear bump out, that variance for that. And, you want to start, Patrick?
Yeah, I vote to approve that.
I do as well.
I do as well. Okay, and then the second part of the vote is for the porch variance.
I vote not to approve that.
I vote to approve.
I vote to approve. So the variance has been approved for both pieces. And Mr. Sarver, what else do we need to do?
We can send out the approval letter. You can fill out the short form. That would be for, you could do it for both, I guess. I could probably get you another copy. And then we can go from there. And then we'll notify you. And then, like I said, you can apply for the permit, it's just we can't do anything for, right, until the appeal process is over. Okay?
Shall we fill it out?
Want to adjourn?
Yeah, I think we can adjourn.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.